Hey guys, welcome to the Wild Bits Show. I'm Upamanyu,
And hi, I'm Meghna.
and we've got a great show planned for you. We will be talking about a bird that is an enigma from the northeast of India. It's called the Bengal Florican, and we'll see how the communities around that bird have turned themselves from hunters to protectors. We're also talking about some invasive species again. So, the Burmese pythons in the Florida Everglades, and how, although we want to cull them, how we don't want to create a market for something that didn't exist if we didn't cull them. So, what else have we got on the roster, Meghna?
So we have the headline topic, the headline and the title that they have sharks on a preschooler's menu. So a Mongabay investigation has revealed that Brazil, the world's leading shark meat importer, is widely distributing it through government procurements to public institutions such as schools, hospitals, and prisons. And this practice basically it feeds the vulnerable groups, the ones that are very dependent on this government support. So, and these vulnerable groups include preschoolers, patients, military personnel, and this practice of feeding them shark meat exposes all of these vulnerable groups to heavy metals like mercury and arsenic, which are toxic and accumulate in the shark meat. So, we're going to talk about how ethical is it to eat shark meat and what are the health implications and what are the kind of steps we should be taking. Should international trade restrictions be expanded? And how do we ensure this is not in our food system? Because one, it's not great for the sharks, but it's not great for us either. And from there we're going to talk about other kind of metals, but in this case it's radioactive. So a South African university has launched a project called the Rhino project. Now this is to combat rhino poaching in Africa. Rhino poaching, the horns, it's a big thing. So here what they're trying to do is they're going to inject their horns with harmless radioactive isotopes, and with this basically it makes the horn not viable for poaching and the poachers will get deterred. Now we have to see, even if they say harmless radioactive isotopes, what is the impact going to be long term? Nobody knows. Secondly, is this something that we should be doing? Like, this sounds like victim blaming. Like the rhino is the one being poached, and instead of trying to stop the poachers and doing more from the poacher side, we're actually thinking of what we can do from the rhino side. So I think instead of the victim blaming, we have to try to change things in such a way that we can eradicate poaching. So how do we do that? We'll have a discussion on that. And then we have a few more topics. If we get through these four topics, you guys know we talk a lot on each topic. So let's get through this and see.
Cool. Before Meghna goes into the headline topic, let me ask you this, Meghna. Why do birds fly to the south during winter?
Oh God, it's going to be another bad joke. Let me think this through. Why do birds go south in the winter?
Fly south
Fly
during the winter.
south. Fly south. No, I can't think of anything.
Because it's way too far to walk. On that note, you can get into your headline topic.
This is worse than the last one. Oops. Worse. Okay, but so let's get on to the headline topic. So it's basically the topic that we came across as well. This is on Manga Bay. It's called That Fish on the Menu. So in Brazil schools and prisons, it's often shark. Now, there's a general labeling of this word. It's called kasao or kasao. We're not sure if we're pronouncing it right. We're sorry if we're not, but it's the general word is kasao for sharks in Brazil. So it could either be a live shark, but it could also mean shark meat. So apparently, the general labeling often hides the meat's true identity from consumers, and so when they hide the identity, or it could be one of those things, how we do not know how many species of sharks there are. So there might be some species that are okay, but there might be a lot of species that are not okay. So in this case, I think that the government is hiding under the garb of just one general kasau what kind of shark it's feeding. And
Mm.
so there are two things now here. So because Brazil now, how many people knew? How many people even knew that Brazil was the leading shark meat importer? This was
I
new
didn't know
for
for
me.
sure.
Yeah, even I didn't know. I knew the exporters. I knew Indonesia is the number one exporter, and I think
Mm.
we're either number two or number three. Like India is number two or number
Oh,
three. So I,
really?
yes, yes, India
Oh,
is one of the top exporters of sharks, and and then in beef as well. But people don't know that we export that as well. So. Yeah, so it's quite interesting because I always assumed, I think we always assumed that it would be the 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 southeast countries like China and uh,
Japan.
Japan, yeah. So we thought it would be China and Japan because you hear a lot about shark fin soup in the China menu. So now, when this investigation comes to light, that I think is the most shocking part for me. But that it's not China or Japan, but it's Brazil that's feeding their people this. Now there are two things in this. You have health risks because when you consume shark meat, now shark meat is mostly just cartilage. It's not really meat on bone. So imagine eating your ears or your nose. Now these the shark meat contains high levels of heavy metals like mercury and arsenic, which are toxic for us. It's not good. You know how you have those thermometers with mercury, and it's always told that, oh, if it breaks, do not touch the mercury. So mercury and arsenic are not good for us, but we go ahead and these people are having shark meat. Now this toxic accumulation is one part of the problem. The other part is obviously that there's a global crisis of plummeting shark populations, which is raising severe environmental and public health concerns. What is basically happening is that humans, they want to eat shark meat, so they kill a lot of sharks, and then what happens when
No, I
you take.
mean, Meghna, let me ask this, or let's try to explore also. Like, I mean, agreed, there are, those harmful chemicals are there and everything else, but I'm just also trying to understand, like, why would they choose something like the shark meat? Like, why not feed something else to the same groups of people? Is it only because it's cheap?
No, it could be that because their livelihood is dependent on it. Like, let's say that if your village or your town is mainly dependent on shark fishing. So, all the boats that go out basically go out for shark fishing, and they probably get paid really well for the sharks. So, when they get paid well for the sharks, they probably like fish a little more and keep a few sharks for themselves as well to locally as well, consume it. Oh, but they're importing the sharks, so I don't know.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
Brazil is like importing sharks. So that's why I am a little bit confused, and I'm trying to find in the article if there's any mention of that. That why would they choose out of all the different fish that is available? Why would they suddenly choose like sharks to import sharks?
That's a
And
good
I
question.
have a doubt. I have a doubt that it is because of the price. Like maybe because obviously salmon, tuna, and other sea fish, they're already on the brink of like disappearing. And they're overfished anyway, and also the farmed salmon, it's often ridden with diseases and things like that. But yeah, that's what I am kind of intrigued by that. Why, out of all the different fish, would they choose like, because there is a there are mentions of like anti-hunger campaigns and things like that, which because of those campaigns and like protests, they were the government or the incumbent government was able to get permission to import even more meat for the additional demand. So
So I'll just tell you one, importing something can't be very cheap. You will not be importing something because you would have a lot of costs. Especially I don't know where they're importing it from. If they're importing it from Indonesia or even India, it's a far distance away. So the costs will be high because even if it is by plane or if it is by ship, it's going to take time. And usually probably meat would go via ship, like if it's huge amounts of shark meat. So if the government is procuring it, it can't be that cheap that they are giving it around. So I don't know, but they're also just, I think, promoting it on all the government kind of institutions. So army, preschoolers, I think the preschoolers that get the free meals in the schools, and then the prisons, and hospitals. So it's all these places. So these are all government based places. So I do not know if they have a subsidy. If they have a subsidy, that means that you are basically saying that a shark's life on the plate is not worth much, but the shark's life in the ocean is way more. And I think we spoke about this a few episodes back. So there is that. Secondly, you're talking about how salmon, tuna, all of them are being overfished, but sharks are equally overfished. So there are around 100 million sharks that we kill in a year. Uh,
no, I didn't mean it that way, and I just did a quick search. Why does Brazil import shark meat? Again, this is a AI summary. We haven't read it in detail, but it does say that it's primarily due to high demand for cheap protein sources. So what I meant by like when I mentioned overfishing, what I meant by that was because salmon, tuna, these are like the top choices for a lot of countries, especially a lot of Western countries, and they're already overfished. So that means their demand is high and supply is low. So that means their price might be skyrocketing. And because shark meat is not regulated in that way, such as tuna or salmon or other, popular sea fish, maybe the capitalistic view of that protein source or shark meat is still very low. So that's why probably a lot of countries, that's why the demand is created. From my
I mean,
understanding, from what I've read in 5 minutes.
my understanding of cheap protein sources is usually chicken and eggs is what I usually hear from people because they're cheaper as opposed to, I think, red meat in most places. So this is new for me, that something like shark, that too, that has mostly cartilage, it has all these heavy metals, would be a cheap protein source over something like chicken that can be easily grown. Sharks, like in India, in Andaman, they fish the sharks. So you can see the impact of that in India. If you go and talk to the shark researchers, they will tell you that because the sharks are being overfished right now, there is like a dearth of normal fish for fishing. So people have started eating rays. So like manta rays, stingrays, all of these are coming up on the menu just because you cannot find the normal fish to eat. Now, what happens is that you and me both know, when you take the apex predators off, then all the fish below it overpopulates. Then because they overpopulate and they need food, they start consuming more of the lower level of fishes or the smaller fishes. So once you run out of the smaller fishes, then the bigger fish also start dying because there's not enough food. So you completely erase a whole ecosystem if you take the sharks out. Now in Andaman, people are now going into really deep water. They go for 4 or 5 days to fish sharks and come back because they've depleted everything around the island. So they have to go like into really deep waters to now bring sharks. So the impact can be seen. It's not easier. So I assume that it's going to be more and more expensive because people are trying to go even farther away and trying to find sharks. So I do not understand how it's cheaper for import, because usually imported goods are not cheaper, right? Like
Yeah,
anything
no,
that you.
I was, yeah, I'm just very, exactly like you. I'm very surprised that how can these be, cheaper than something like farming chicken or beef or whatever. And like this is again an article or yeah, some sort of information. I'm just trying to understand, and again, you know we have had not had time to research it, but there seems like there are some legal loopholes where fishing targeted fishing of sharks are prohibited, but if they land as bycatch, there are very minimal restrictions. So I think you know this loophole has been exploited by the country's tuna fleet. Yes, so that's what I was saying. Like my hunch was kind of on the right direction, I think, because these tuna and salmon and grouper and all those other fish are very well recognized, and I think the Western world consumes a lot of it. That's why their demand is high, their price is high, and this bycatch, because there are no legal provisions yet for these sorts of things. I think that is the loophole they're exploiting to keep the prices artificially low, and in turn, the market is sort of when the local market is demanding for midday meals in school or prison, the government will be, oh, we see them as like groups that may not need our full attention, especially like prisoners and stuff. Let's give them this cheap meat that we are getting from whatever sources
No,
we
but
buy it.
tell me this, and you and me both know this. When, like, basically from India, anything that is exported, you export like everything high quality. Like we always say that the low quality stuff, is in the country, and
Yes.
they always send the high quality stuff out.
Yeah.
Now, in an area like Andaman, and what I know about shark fishing is that it is a very lucrative business, and a lot of people from Kerala and Tamil Nadu and other places, I think they shift from those places to Andaman, and because they have not
Mm.
grown up in Andaman, they do not really have a lot of empathy or compassion for the ocean the same way. So when the sharks disappear and you have to eat rays, they don't really understand that because they have these shark fishing contracts. They complete the contracts and then they go back to mainland. Now, when
Mm.
people are even shifting from their states and going to another state and another place, it cannot be for something that's cheap, right? Like it has to be that you're making all of this effort to become an exporter of something, and you're spending all this money to
Oh, no,
send
no.
your.
I don't mean cheap as in like cheap, but like Brazil and India are for a part of the same group. Like we have UN, there is BRICS, right? So Brazil and India are part of BRICS. So that definitely means that they have some trade agreements in place, which might and will reduce the price. And I'm not sure if Brazil is importing mainly from India or Indonesia or wherever, but I'm saying what might be a lucrative job for fishermen in Indonesia, India, or wherever else shark is farmed or fished might not be, like, compared to importing tuna or fishing tuna, it might be cheap for Brazil
I
to
mean, I
import.
understand, but if you're looking at cheap protein sources, I do not know if shark really features on that list. Like I spoke to you, chicken would probably
I
be a
mean,
more
definitely
viable.
it should like definitely it does, because that's why Brazil is doing it, right? If it wasn't cheap, they wouldn't be doing it, right?
Yeah, but now there are two things in this one. There are other cheap protein sources of animals that we have domesticated a long, long time. We spoke about this last time as well. Like
Mm,
we view chickens and goats and cows as commodities, as food more than as an animal. So when you have already kind of labeled, you have those in place. Secondly, the amount of chemicals that you're exposing people to. So shark meat, whatever I've always read of about it, is that one, it doesn't have a taste of its own as opposed to I think
mm,
other meats. So it's not very tasty. You have to kind of season it really well. Secondly,
mm,
now I could be wrong. This is what I read. And secondly, you have to kind of it's cartilage, so it's kind of I think blubbery, if like the way it is. So why would you go for something that has high chemical content instead of
mm,
something that's easier to, let's say, grow, like something like chickens? You need some land, yes, but it's easier because they multiply fast enough. They give eggs, they multiply.
mm,
Why would you not go for something like that? Like now something like China and Japan, I understand, because they do eat exotic meat. They always have exotic meat on their menu. It's not just
mm,
China, Japan. Even when you go to Thailand, sometimes you can see those snakes and scorpion and even alligators being
mm.
roasted. So it's across Southeast Asia. So we know that here there is like a knack for exotic food, but in Brazil they're actually using it as a cheap substitute. So it makes zero sense.
It
It's not
it
even
it
because it's easy to
really
execute.
it really does. And sorry, I'm just very very intrigued by the fact why. So this is like I was reading in the article, and this is what it says. So with its own shark populations dwindling, Brazil now imports most of its shark meat principally from Spain and Taiwan. Vessels harvest the fins, a luxury food for Asian markets, while the much cheaper meat is absorbed by an assortment of countries, Brazil foremost amongst them. So, yeah, I think it comes down to that evilness of the capitalistic society that we have created, and these poor sharks are a victim of that ever, engulfing
Okay, I think
society.
now it makes sense because the fins are what is the most expensive
Mm,
part. The
yes.
fins are what is a delicacy. So they say shark
Yeah.
fin soup is one of the most expensive things when you go to like China or Japan. But I
Yes.
think here they're saying is the rest of the meat. So I do not know what is
Mm,
the rest of the shark that they're chopping and sending. So it's basically that when you harvest the entire shark, so they're trying to make like food, like some money out of the rest of the shark that is there, which is the
yes.
scraps.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
scraps are being taken by countries like Brazil,
Mm.
and that is how they have this. But the scraps and the fin, both of them have the same amount of heavy metals. And did you read the first line is because Brazil's shark population is dwindling. So it is
Yes.
already like the same thing that we were talking about that you mentioned. The overfishing has already happened in Brazil, and they're able to see its impacts, but they're still not stopping. They want others to start doing the same and lose their populations of shark.
Um. Like, also let's. And I think this is a good segue to get into our discussion question as well. Um, which is, should trade restrictions be expanded to prevent shark meat from entering public food systems, especially when sourced from endangered species? Um, and I think, to me, that is kind of the only way that can happen. Like, this is one of those things that, until there is a legal stop to it, people will keep on doing it, by we mentioned ivory in last episode, last show, or the show before. It's similar to that. You have to sort of form the legalese for it, and you have to enforce it very very heavily. And that's kind of the only way, in my view, like we did very successfully with like whale hunting, and you know taking in whales. What's your thought, Meghna, there?
Yeah, I don't. I think it's not just the whales. I think it's the whale sharks as well. Like,
Mm,
you know how we were having that discussion that day. So there is an Indian filmmaker called Mike Pandey, and he made
mm,
a documentary called "Shores of Silence," which was on the whale shark fishing in Gujarat. What they used
mm,
to do is they used to, stick a harpoon through the whale, and then they would tire the whale out. The whale shark would come up and then go down, and it would tug on it, and it would try to free itself. And once it got tired and gave up, then they would drive the whale shark back. So the whale sharks are huge, so there was no other way to do it than actually tire the whale shark out. So it was really inhumane. Secondly, I think what I remember of the meat is that it was really cheap. Like you would cut like I think it was oil that they were taking from
mm,
the whale shark. So it was the
mm,
fat, it was cheap. So this was something when he created the documentary, he created ripples across the world. He got people talking. And then the Indian legislation changed their rules and they made whale shark fishing illegal in India. That is when things
mm.
changed. So obviously the documentary was the root cause for it, but then there was action for that root cause. So the action is what is important. Now, how
Mm.
I spoke about Andamans, the locals can feel the heat. They can feel that they're not able to get the fish that they regularly had because now the sharks are disappearing. It's something that's going to happen in a lot of places if people do not recognize the importance of an apex predator, especially in the ocean when you can't see them. And the fact that we always villainize sharks. Like even today, till date, there are movies made where, there are these shark attacks and shark. I don't know, the weirdest kind of movies come up, and people still really absorb like shark attack stories. We love villainizing them. So we're like, yeah, it's fine if, we just kill them. It's fine if we take them out of the water, but it's not fine. They belong in the water, and we need them if you really want to be fishing sustainably. Anything else?
Yeah, and I think the world today is in some fields at least, the world today tries to be very, either this or that. Like, you can be afraid of sharks and also want to protect them, and also understand their importance in the ecosystem. Like, you don't have to swim with sharks to understand their impact of an apex predator like shark
No, I'm not saying
in
you
their
need to.
respective
you don't
ecosystems.
you don't need to be diving or anything. You can be scared of them, but I think when you're scared of something, the interest for you to actually know anything about the species is also lesser. Like, because they're villainized, you're like, yes, they're a villain. You don't really take the interest to read up about them. You don't really take the interest. There are people, like you said, there are people who are scared and still would advocate for sharks, and there are people who are really passionate and advocate for sharks. But usually the people who are passionate are the ones advocating, and the ones who are scared or the ones who are disinterested is the majority of the population. So till we kind of educate them, like I think we spoke about this a couple of episodes back, there's a project called Project Hue in
Mm,
Indonesia, where this girl has been transforming shark fishers into now tourism operators. So these people who used to fish these sharks in Indonesia, now they don't fish them, but they take people out to show these sharks. And because people are going there to swim with the sharks and see the sharks in their natural environment, it's bringing in more money for them than from fishing sharks. So that change has also happened in the mindset, where they know that an alive shark is more than a dead shark. It has more value. So like that, we need to either have those kind of citizen science projects, or we need the government framework. But without these two things, um, things won't change. And 100 million sharks per year is that we're going to run the ocean dry, and then we would really have a problem. The ocean is really important, like we've spoken before. But once we bleed the ocean dry, then we would be in very serious problems.
oh, 100%. And like, um yeah, I think even like these kinds of things also should be like, from parents and from schools and things, other areas where children are growing up, these kinds of things should be embedded into a child, where again, as I said, like afraid of sharks, but I won't go and seek out like a shark fin soup or a shark meat, because I know what the impact is on the ecosystem. So I think that's could be another way of raising a generation who don't have to think so binarily. Like you're saying, like when you were saying, I was just thinking when you were saying that, oh, only the passionate people will be able, d- like that's the truth. Like only the passionate people advocate more and um you know speak about these issues more than the non-passionate people. And I think it's a very that's a very sad state to exist in, and that's the reality. But it would be great if we can advocate for those issues, like an ally, like an ally. Like you don't have to be belonging to the you can be a LGBTQ ally. So we can be a shark ally, like people who are afraid of sharks, can be a shark ally, regardless whether they are fearful of this or not. And I think that would be a beautiful place to exist. But as Meghna was saying, the sad reality of the situation is that this is happening, and like kids are growing up like kids should be taught not to do these things, and instead of that they're growing up on this meat of this very endangered species. you know
Yeah, and I
it's
mean
really
it's
sad.
exposing really young kids like preschoolers. It's exposing
Mm,
preschoolers to this heavy levels of these metals. So when you're exposing someone that young to such kind of metals, we do not know. And obviously Brazil also is a developing country like us, like India. So probably they do not invest that much time and money into the research when children probably fall sick from consumption of shark meat. They might just blame it on other causes. There could be a lot of things, but there is no long term data. So we do not even know if these kids consuming these metals right now is going to have devastating effects for them also. So something like shark meat is a lose lose situation. So the people are also
mm,
losing and the environment is losing. So it's not a win for anyone. So I don't even see what human greed is actually propagating these kind of things, because it's not good for us either. So why are you doing it? But having said that, I think we know the answer. Like humans know something's not good for them, but they will not give up on it. Like something like plastic. Now you're like, oh no no no, now plastics come in. Now we need to survive. Now we need plastic. Now there's this whole hoo-ha about straws and everything, but you still have everything else in plastic. Like I mean, all our bottles are plastic. Everything is plastic still. All our chips and every other packaging. I mean, it was convenience, but we just change one little thing, and then we're like, okay, we have made at least some change. We know plastic is not good, but we're too wrapped up in it. So it's the same with probably shark meat. We know it's not good, but we cannot give up on it.
yeah. And to me, like it all comes down to the you know capitalistic lens of things. And yeah, it's unless there is that, as you said, and I think the article also mentions Sea Shepherd and other organizations who are sort of advocating for getting rid of these kinds of regulations and loopholes, basically. Like I think we'll get there, but it shouldn't be the case that we are getting there without these species existing. Like because like and I think compared to like tunas or other sea fish, sharks have like a longer both the gestation period and like the frequency of reproduction. They reproduce less frequently than fish, than other fish. So we're taking an amount which is not getting replenished. So that means like anybody, even a person who's not you know in tune with these topics and areas of interest, they can anybody can understand that if you take more than that nature can fulfill and replenish, then a day will soon come where there's nothing left. Um, and and while fish is, if we take a fish, maybe only one species will go extinct, but for apex predator like sharks, as Meghna was saying, if we take that out, then all this smaller fish that follow, they will inevitably go extinct. And it sounds a little counterintuitive, but extensive research has proved it, and it is very well known fact that if you take out a apex predator, then all the other prey species would for sure dwindle down.
Yeah, and I think that's where somehow we need to know how much is okay to fish, or how much is okay to hunt, or how much is okay to deplete. But we do not. Like, as humans, we do not have a limit. We just keep on depleting everything, like from land, from the ocean, and we don't give it back enough. So the speed for everything, I think everything that's going extinct is because of the same issue that you've raised, that the reproduction is way slower, so their replacement is not happening as fast as we are taking from
Mm,
the
mm,
environment. So we really need to, I think there needs to be like a bigger push, especially for sharks, because we need more protection so that
mm.
people can go back to eating the fish that they like. If you want to increase the species and the number of fish, then you have to bring the sharks back into all these shark deprived oceans, and you will see an abundance of fish again.
Yes, that is a very, very, very good point. Yeah. Yeah, and it is counterintuitive, but that's the truth. If you bring back the apex predators and bring back like whales, you know, we can already see the effects of bringing back and like stopping the whale hunting, and all the extensive, like a species like humpback whales, we almost hunted it to extinction. uh, but thanks to the all the countries that sort of agreed at the right time to sort of ban those things, ban the hunting, we can see the effects today. And it's really possible. Like nature will bounce back if given the chance. If we leave nature alone, it will bounce back. And that's the good thing about, that's the ray of light amongst all this darkness, that if the demand subsides, if we stop that, nature will definitely bounce back.
And talking about nature bouncing back, I think it's a good time to segue to the next topic, which is about your Bengal Floricans, because it ties up perfectly with the topic we're talking right now. It's the stark opposite, where their people have become the protectors. And that's a really nice story. So, yeah, let's talk about
Yeah,
that.
let's do that. Let's do that. They used to poach this rare bird. Now they saved them. This is a story from National Geographic, um, and this sort of goes on to say that decades of political unrest and poaching in India's Manas National Park, which is a national park in the northeast part of India in a state called Assam. India's Manas National Park, critically endangered Bengal Floricans. Um, During the Bodo conflict, again, Bodo is a tribe that belongs to the nearby areas. So during the Bodo conflict, late 1980s, early 2000s, poverty-stricken communities, including former poachers like Rustam Basumatari, hunted these birds. I've actually traveled with Rustam when I went to photograph these birds in Manas, hunted these birds. Now, remarkable resurgence is occurring. Following the 2003 conflict end, former poachers and community members transformed into conservationists. Groups like Manas Mausingdri Ecotourism Society, MMES, formed by Bodo members, actively protect the Floricans. This community led initiative is successfully boosting populations, attracting tourists to the UNESCO World Heritage Site, and proving a powerful model for wildlife recovery. Um, Bengal Floricans are, I think, uh, in like one of the two species of floricans that are found in India. One is found in the grasslands of Assam, and the other one is found in the grasslands of I would say Rajasthan, or Gujarat. I'll have to check. I'll get back to that. But Bengal pelicans are these beautiful birds. They have a beautiful call. They actually
Do you have a
um,
picture for our audience?
I yes, I'm trying to get a picture for the audience. But yeah, they're these beautiful birds, and um, they generally live and mate in the grasslands. So they would need like tall grass to go about their day and you know do whatever they have to do in their life cycle. But also the thing people love seeing, or the thing photographers like me visit those areas to see, is what's their mating display. So they will jump. They have very powerful legs, and they will jump up, and they also have like a vocal sac that they'll inflate and produce these eerie but very beautiful sounds. So that's what that display is a very magnificent and very beautiful display. I'm just sharing my screen now. You would be able to see the bird. Uh, Again, very nondescript looking bird. You wouldn't give it the time of day, if it were not for it being such an endangered bird, and it's
Now,
it being
I want to
hunted.
know. Yeah, so I wanted to know what caused the change. So, if they were all these poachers and then they suddenly became conservationists, where did this change come from?
I think so this is again, as I said, like I have traveled with Rustam. Like he was our bird guide when I visited Manas to photograph these birds. I've traveled with him, and he speaks very highly of his journey. Basically, he always mentions his journey into from being a hunter to being the sort of protector, and
Yes, but I want to know the why. Like, what caused the change? It's not, I mean, I'm sure they're proud about the change, but do you know the story? Did you ever ask Rustam, like, what prompted the change?
yes, I did. So the change was led by the fact that the conflict was over. The conflict between tribes and between like groups of their own tribes was over. So we have seen this theme. I think again, this is a theme across the world, and this theme can be connected to every wildlife issue around the world in some shape or form. And the theme is humans can only focus or devote time to, as a large group, to issues of nature, climate change, conservation, etc., once their own conflicts and own issues are relatively solved. It's very difficult for us to think about, you know, conservation, climate change, etc., etc., when there's things like poverty, there's
No,
things like
and
food, scarcity of food, and things like that. So I think
I I understand how, like, obviously when you're in conflict it's different, but are you saying that till the conflict it was poached because people like to eat them or hunt them for fun, or what was it that they used to do earlier? And then once the conflict was over, what really caused the change? Like, why did they think that, did they have access to more food sources, or did they, what changed particularly for them to start protecting? You know how in Jim Corbett he had a change of heart. There was an incident that caused him to start protecting tigers instead of hunting them down. So there has to be some kind of change that happened.
yes. So I think there's this there are these couple of quotes mentioned in the article, from Rustam, where he says, like, I was around 14 or 15 when I began poaching with my friends, and also the quote where he says poverty pushed certain sections of our community to hunt wildlife for survival. So they might have been eating them, they might have been, exporting their feathers and things like that. Again, not very sure, but something to do with poverty, something to do with their livelihood. And this bird, again, for people that do not know, this is a species of bustard as well. So the other florican that I was talking about, it's known as the lesser florican, which is found. Yeah, so there's the Bengal Florican and there's the lesser Florican, both endemic to the Indian subcontinent. So yeah, both of them live in grasslands, and the Bengal Florican is much more, um, you know, towards extinction and much more endangered than compared to the lesser Florican, but both are very much endangered, and I think that's where the whole issue that I was mentioning comes in. Um, yeah, so when the Bodo movement ended in 2003, about 100 members formed this MMES society, and pushed for change so the park could regain its formal glory. And I think that's what I was talking about. Like, once our conflicts and our problems are solved, then we have, which is very unfortunate, but that's when we have the brain space and the head space to focus on these sorts of issues, which is very unfortunate. Again, I'll say that one more time, but that's sadly how the world goes around.
Yeah, but I think this is now a very good example because how you said in the gist that now it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site and it's pulling the tourism, it's pulling all the tourists to come and see this bird. So, this is again what we were talking about in the previous topic, that if we actually maybe when you change the perspective, then there are people coming to see them, and then the alive birds are way more than the dead birds. Like the bird is way more than a dead bird. So that is how we need to do even with sharks and other species. So this is great because you see that the change, you actually are able to see the change. You see the tourism pull. You see the how people now, like how Upamanyu was saying, he actually traveled with Rustam, who used to be a poacher and is now a conservationist. So you've had that change, and then they've had this livelihood now, a new source of income.
Yeah, and it mentions in the article as well. So today, a growing number of tourists from around the world visit and have the chance to witness the Bengal Florican and its legendary dance. That is the mating dance I was talking about. And that helps local economy. According to Basumatari, more than 2,000 families living around the park earn 400 to 500 US dollars per month during the Florican season from November through June. The same birds we killed in the past for food are today sustaining our household. So that's the success story there. And also, the very good thing is, though still critically endangered, the Bengal Floricans are showing signs of improvement. 2024 study in the Journal of Threatened Taxa found 10 more of the birds in Manas compared to a 2011 survey, calling the modest increase an encouraging sign. So that's the very beautiful part, as Meghna was saying, about this transformation from a group being the hunters to being the protectors, as I said in the intro. And I think this model is or this particular case should be an inspiration for other similar similar communities and similar places around the globe, where if there is a conflict, the government should try and resolve that conflict as soon as possible, which is too much to expect from any government around the world. But I'm still saying it out loud. And also, if there are situations where there's a poverty, the things like poverty and hunger are encouraging these families, these individuals, to go out and hunt these things. This was not even for export, right? This was just to fulfill their basic needs, basic human needs. So if such a case exists, and I'm sure there are other examples that can be found around the world, the government and the local government, the state government, and the central government should interfere and make sure those situations are improved, and not only just by giving money, but also by giving training and education and things like that, as well, to those communities.
So I think this is where it comes in. Like, I think we've spoken about this earlier as well, that people are not going to change until you give them a reason as well. So now here you read that they make around $400 to $500 a month in the Florican season, which is 6 months of a year or 7 months of the year. So
Mm,
that is great because they're getting that kind of livelihood from here. Now, if they were not getting such kind of livelihood, I don't think that they would be pushed for conserving it. So if we have to become conservationists, the government also has to give a kind of subsidy or some kind of encouragement so that people actively change. Now, in this case, like, we see that now, it's caused this change has caused them to get more money. But in other cases, if there is no incentive, a lot of people keep going forward. So similarly, how I told you that there's that citizen project in Indonesia where they're trying to now show how tourism is better. Similarly, I think with most species, if we have to save them, we have to get a tourism angle onto them, because tourism
mm,
really brings in money. Tourism may also have its own,
yes,
what do you say,
absolutely.
implications, which is the carbon footprint and other things. But at the same time, we have to see which is better, like conserving them and promoting tourism, or killing them and not promoting tourism. So we need to weigh, and I think that conserving them and promoting tourism would come up way higher than actually killing them.
Yes, I think that's exactly correct, and we have to choose again. Like, we have created a world, we live in a world where everything we do is kind of in we like kind of in that step, where in that direction where something will be harmed, but we have to choose that lesser of the two evils. And that's I think that's the crux of the matter, as Meghna beautifully pointed out as well. But overall, like, this is a very um, you know impactful and very important success story that we also wanted to highlight. We have a discussion question here. What elements make the transformation of former poachers into wildlife protectors successful, and how could this model be applied in other conservation hotspots globally? And I think we have kind of answered that question um, through the discussion that we have just had. It's about those resolving those conflicts. It's about fulfilling the basic needs of those communities, and making sure that the communities understand the importance of tourism, and they can see a clear benefit, because unless and until they see that they have cash in hand and they can see those clear benefits, yeah, I don't think just words will be very difficult to get through to these communities.
Yeah, I think the thing is that you have to tell the people what's in for them. So, just like the
Yes.
last topic, if the Brazilian government actually starts telling people how bad shark meat is for them and then tell them alternatives of what they should be doing. Now, anyway, I think something like the previous topic, their livelihood did not depend on it because most of the sharks are gone. But so it's easier to actually cause that change by just bringing that awareness in. Now, here in this topic, or with the Floricans, or even the tigers, but like we spoke earlier, how Jim Corbett turned from a poacher into a, not a poacher but a hunter, into a conservationist. So similarly, there are many stories, and we need those kind of stories, because if you are not going to bring the people together, then there is no way that any species is going to be protected, because at the end of the day, we are the hunters, we are the poachers. So if we have to become the protectors, we are the ones responsible for the damage earlier, and we are the ones responsible for protecting it later. So we have to play that pivotal role both ways, and it's better we play the protector role, because then we are actually, at the end of the day, a better forest, a better ocean will come back and will be better for us in the long term, in the long term run. So we need to protect and not just, cull, hunt, kill.
Yes. Yes. That is correct. That was good. That sort of energized me a little bit as well, because oftentimes we find that, most of the conservation stories are very, uh, by our own fault, very, I'm not sure what the right word is. And but these success stories are very energizing. I can say that much. Cool. Should we move on to the next story, Meghna?
Yes, we can do that. So, the next story that we are going to be talking about is about rhino horns. Now, rhino horns is also something that we touched on briefly, I think, a couple of episodes back when we were talking about poaching. So now, rhino horns have been made radioactive to foil traffickers in South African project. Now, I'm just gonna read the blurb of this, so you get a little summary. A South African university has launched the Rhizotope project to combat rhino poaching by injecting their horns with harmless radioactive isotopes. Led by Professor James Larkin and involving conservationists and nuclear energy officials, this initiative aims to make trafficked horns readily detectable at international borders and airports. Even low levels of radioactivity triggers detectors, enabling custom agents to identify and apprehend poachers and traffickers. Following successful trials proving safety and efficacy, 5 rhinos have been injected, with plans for a mass rollout across the declining rhino population. This innovative approach provides a powerful new tool against illegal wildlife trade, leveraging nuclear technology for conservation efforts. Now, obviously, we all know how nuclear energy has its own risks, because you really need a lot of energy to cool down nuclear energy and take care of it. Like, I think these videos, I've once seen these videos saying that what would happen if humans disappeared off the earth just now. So you'd have these videos, and humans are walking, and then the humans just disappear from the video, and the first thing that they say is that the nuclear reactors go off. So because there's nobody to man the nuclear reactors, and there's no more cooling of the nuclear reactors happening, then there are like nuclear blasts everywhere in the world. So nuclear energy is still really volatile, but if it is being used for such kind of conservation efforts, it's great. The only thing is that the safety of the rhinos is still a really short term study. So we do not know if the radioactive isotopes are actually harmless, or if they're causing harm in the long term. Now, that is one of the things. Secondly, we are basically saying that we need to let the rhino be poached, and then the horns will be detected at an airport or
Mm.
somewhere else where it comes into the scanners. Now, a lot of poachers might not even try to get it via air. They might find different ways of taking it via ship or via some other way, via land. So, in those cases, then these detectors and these detective mechanisms will not help. So, it's a small problem that is going to be solved, just the air problem. But the bigger question and the discussion question in this topic is that compared to proven methods like dehorning, which reduces poaching by up to 80%, is irradiating rhino horns a more scalable and deterrent solution, or should resources be redirected to human wildlife conflict mitigation and habitat enforcement? So this brings us to this question, that are we supposed to try to protect the rhino by just dehorning them or injecting them, or should we move these kind of money for this research into better habitat reinforcement, so you have like a stronger push and more people so that there is less poaching happening? Like, what is a better way? What do you think, Oops?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like even dehorning, or as you said, as you mentioned, the injecting the horns with radioactive, you know, isotopes,
Isotopes, yeah.
just so that they can be detected in a airport. Is this way of thinking is a very sort of industrial way of thinking, and this has only happened like post the um, you know post our like how we have formed this society. And I go back to how we have formed the society and how we have maintained some of these, created some of these rules. This to me seems like more of a band-aid kind of situation, rather than trying to fix the root cause, as the discussion question rightly points out. Again, it's a stark contrast to the Bengal Florican story, where the Bengal Florican story, the root cause was either naturally solved, or there was some aids from the government and things like that to solve it. But here, it's just putting they're just saying that, oh, we can't stop poaching, so let's try these band-aid kind of measures to try and deter the people that are poaching. And again, this might be going, connecting dots that are too far, but as humans, we as a species, we love challenges. If a challenge is presented to us, we will find a way to, you know, go around that challenge. We will find some way to go around that challenge. So it can be things like carrying in a lead lined bag or something like that, which sort of conceals all the radioactive things. And as Meghna said, that they might not even be using ports of any kind to, you know, take out these rhino horns. So it is really difficult to sustain like a conservation effort or anti-poaching effort in
Yeah.
in such a way.
So I think when we were selecting or choosing this topic, we had actually spoken about this thing where, one, obviously the point that Oops just got in, that we like a challenge. So this is something that we see in like normal human tendency. Like there was this one concert where I was doing these bag checks and card checks. So you had to actually check these cards and bags so that you did not get any alcohol from outside into the concert, because the rules were such that you had to buy alcohol inside the concert. So these people found novel ways, like people would stick a bottle with scotch tape inside their engine, on the side of their engine, or they would like have a they would cut out their seat and they would have like a place where they had kept these bottles. So humans really love those challenges. You tell them
Mm.
no, you cannot do this, and they will find a way to do it. So this is what probably might happen with this. The second thing is obviously obviously again now this is victim blaming. A similarity that we can draw from this is how, how they tell women that, oh, it's very unsafe outside, you can get raped, you can get molested, you can get groped. So instead of trying to educate the men who are groping or raping, we tell the women that, oh, why don't you cover up, why don't you not go out in the night, okay, don't go out after 8 o'clock alone. So instead of making the environment safe for the women, we tell the women to change, we tell the women to adjust, we tell the women that it's okay if this all happens, all the rape and molesting and groping. So I think it is similar here. We're trying to tell the rhinos that it's okay. Like, I mean, even if if you're being dehorned, it's okay. Or if, we are injecting your horn with this, it's okay. We're not going to actually try and effectively stop poaching altogether, but we'll actually try and put a little something for you and try to see how much of your horn we can actually save. And this is something I think we'd spoken of like a few episodes back, where I told
Mm.
you that this poacher came and they cut the rhino horn really close to her face, and she got so distressed after losing her horn that she lost her baby. So,
Mm.
horn plays a really big role. Like now, I think it must be similar to us having our hands, perhaps something that we really need or we pride ourselves at, something that is useful to us. The horn is their way of defense, and offense. So you're taking away that one thing that really protects them, like how with even bulls, like they use their horns, so you're taking away their first line of defense, and you're saying, oh, this is the only way we can save you.
Yes, that is correct, and like, yeah, some very very good analogies there as well. But I think, yeah, um, like it's only going to get worse. It might seem like it's getting better, but we have other examples. We have seen this. Like, everybody knows this. You might have an example, in your mind. Like, everyone from the audience might have one example in their mind where something something meant to deter an activity or a behavior has actually increased that behavior. So yeah, I think this is a similar sort of situation where we are um, trying to, you know yeah, as Meghna said, trying to dehorn the rhino or inject isotopes in their horns and try and put a band-aid into the situation, which to me again is a very temporary and a non-sustainable um, way of conserving. The root cause like, I don't know if Meghna, but what's the I think it's medicinal, in like Far Eastern medicine where rhino horns are used, if I'm not wrong. That's the demand, that's the market, that's why poachers go towards that rhino horn. I think this sort of a step could be taken in the other opposite direction, where um, you know the demand is being cut down, and the demand of procuring rhino horns, or the market, some sort of legalese should be applied to that market so that they can't
Yeah.
procure rhino
I
horns.
I think there are two things. One that you mentioned, that obviously they have medicinal properties, but it is also a status symbol. So you know how you have
Mm.
these trophy hunters, and they take the trophy back, that the head
Mm-hmm.
back on the board. I think it's similar to that. That if you have a rhino horn, it in some countries, in some Asian countries, they are a status symbol. That, oh, I have a rhino horn. That means that I have good wealth and a social standing. So it is used to
Mm.
display wealth and social standing. So this
Mm.
demand is what is fueling the black market. So similarly, like when we spoke about this again a few episodes back, that even elephants had the same issue. Like elephants were being poached for their horns. So we kill the demand. We kill the root cause of the demand, and then by creating awareness, and similarly you were really strict with the poachers. So in both ways we finished, or we've completely almost eradicated elephant ivory tusk poaching, because there is no
Mm,
demand, so why would someone want to poach? So I think it has
mm,
to similarly happen with rhinos. Like they're saying that the horns, they're composed of keratin, and if you've heard, oops, there's a lot of talk about like keratin treatments for your hair, how keratin is great, for things. So I think when you tell humans that it's great for your skin or your hair or your
mm.
nails, then we're like, oh yes, 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 it would be great. And then I think it's also falsely believed to cure various ailments, like a lot of, I think, Asian medicine, where it's not research. So I think a lot of things boil down to the fact that we just say that, oh, if you have this is great for you. So I think it's the same thing with rhino horn. So that demand needs to be killed. So there needs to be awareness, as well as greater enforcement, greater money being pushed into the anti-poaching activities than actually trying to take the horn away from the rhino.
Yeah, I think this sort of a measure, if we have to do this sort of a measure, a band-aid measure, then it should be applied to the other extremity rather than, to the rhino. Um, Again, I think the topic about Far Eastern medicine and things like that, we don't know if this actually holds true, or we don't know if they truly have those benefits. But even if they did, in the current state, if there were like, I would say if there were like 1 billion humans, or like, whatever, 900 million humans, then it would still be some sort of sustainable. But right now, where we are at, I don't know. These kinds of behaviors and these kinds of demand is absolutely not sustainable. The rhino population will die off, but we still would be able to meet the demands of, if this remains unchecked. If this remains unchecked, if the demand remains unchecked, then yeah, it would soon come a time where all the rhinos are just either hornless or dead. Um, but we still will have that huge increased demand.
Yeah, and one of the things I think in this article, I hope all the viewers saw when I shared the rhino picture, but otherwise I can again share it. But one of the things that's great about, and I think I'll just show it. So you see this area. It says dehorning rhinos reduces poaching by 80%. Study finds. And that I think is really funny for me, because if you don't have the horn, what are they poaching it for? So obviously it will reduce by
Mm,
80%. Like you're taking that one thing away from the poachers that the poachers want. If that
mm,
doesn't reduce the poaching, what will? So it's kind of
mm.
funny that you would have to even put that in an article, because that,
It's
I
a
mean,
rhetoric
if you,
statement.
yeah, I mean, if you're going to tell me that there are no eggs at the shop, I'll not go to that shop to buy eggs. It's as simple as that. So yeah, but it's funny, and that's what is actually reducing the poaching, not because there are stricter measures. I think there are areas in India that I know about that they actually have a strict shoot it sight order on the poachers, and poachers are actually really scared because of that. So even though you have like these traps, illegal traps set out in some forests, people are really strict with the poachers. And if you cause that fear in poachers, then they will automatically back off. But with that also, you need to kind of kill the demand, so they know that their
Mm.
livelihood cannot depend on such an illegal activity.
Yes, yes, and I think here as well, like, a similar model, if the government steps in, a similar model was a huge success in Manas, in Assam, with the Bengal Floricans, could be applied in some shape or form to this situation as well, where the government could expose these people to, or programs could be formed where these people are exposed to alternate source of income, either by that, uh, there are rehabilitation centers for these dehorned kind of rhinos, and the, they could be, introduced as caretakers, or any n number of things. Again, that would need some thinking, and that would need some research on the government's part. But I think a similar model could well be applied to this situation, similar situations as well. And we
But
would
I
like to see
think
that happen.
But I think with the Bengal Floricans, it was the locals only poaching and eating it.
Hmm.
So when you change the locals and you told them that, oh, tourism can help them, it's very different because the demand is also being cut by the local poachers itself. But in this case, until and unless we also actually like target the demand and be like, okay, no, this is not good, and you have these awareness campaigns about rhinos similarly, like you would have for sharks, how shark meat isn't good, rhino horns aren't that great. Only then will the change happen, only when then will the poachers be okay, because at the end of the day they will see how much more money they can make via poaching, as opposed to if they took up a job in the national park and were actively promoting tourism.
Mm, yeah, yeah, no, that is correct. That is absolutely correct, and I think, um, yeah, I mean, there are people much more intelligent than us, which who definitely would have given some thought to this situation, and I think the way to go would be some kind of flipping the story for the local people, turning them from poachers to protectors, but also effectively curbing the worldwide demand for such kind of items in the first place. But yeah, as it stands right now, we're hopeful. We're hopeful. Again, these sorts of bandit situations, these sorts of um, you know methods of dehorning, or even injecting them with these sorts of nuclear isotopes, is a good temporary measure until we can achieve that. But these if anyone sees this as a permanent measure, yeah, they would be very, very wrong.
Yeah,
This cannot be a permanent thing.
I laud them at the fact that they're doing something about it and they're not just
Yes.
sitting back. But at the same time, you cannot be happy and sit back and say, oh, yeah, this is what I will do for the rhinos, and this is a great measure. And we don't need to address the root cause of the demand. We don't need to address how we can reduce poaching. So if we don't do that, then that's a problem. But for now, even this is a good measure, because probably this, if there is no side effect, then it might actually be great for the rhinos in the long term. But we cannot start harming them, or we cannot start looking at these situations that let's kind of inject them, and this is great, like this is all we will do.
Hmm.
And I think this is where it comes in. Like, I think change also doesn't happen very soon. How Upamanyu said, or talked about the whales. Now, hunting of whales used to happen for a long time till we started actively stopping the hunting. Now, a few countries still do it in the name of research, and a few other countries do it in the name of um, just a yearly hunt. But in general, I think that the entire whale hunting has reduced, and you can see the whales rebound back. You can see the whales teeming with life everywhere. So this kind of change didn't happen suddenly, and this kind of impact didn't happen suddenly. So we need to slowly do it, but at least we need to go in that direction of motivating people to reduce that demand for rhinos.
That is correct. That is correct. Um, cool. I think, speaking of demand, we can move on to the Burmese python story, um, where a new kind of demand is being created. So, this is again a story from the National Geographic magazine. So it says this designer is giving thousands of dead Burmese pythons new life. Florida's Everglades are severely threatened by tens of thousands of non-native Burmese pythons. Again, agreed. They're non-native. They're introduced. Again, agree to that statement. Which are devastating the ecosystem by preying on endangered wildlife. Definitely, that agreed there as well. With few natural predators, culling is essential to control their rapidly reproducing population. Over 23,500 pythons have been removed from southern Florida wetlands through organized hunts, state agents, and dedicated volunteers like El Barbito. Barbito, a 29-year-old from the New York fashion world, actively hunts these voracious snakes. Unlike most hunters who discard carcasses, she repurposes the remains, ensuring nothing goes to waste. This dual effort addresses the invasive species crisis while also utilizing the culled animals. The reason, again, this by reading this to everyone who's listening, this might seem like a good story, like a feel good story, but the reason that we picked this story is this story, like the fact that this is happening, is being portrayed in a very positive and feel good way, while where it shouldn't, like, yes, you can celebrate the fact, you can be happy about the fact, oh, these snakes skin are being upcycled, or whatever, but our view on that is, why do that? Like, that's why we picked the story. But we thought that this is something that is being portrayed in a light that it shouldn't be portrayed in, where it could be creating an unnecessary market and demand for something that, once all the snakes from the Florida Everglades are eliminated, which it will be if there's enough demand for these snakeskin bags and snakeskin accessories, then we will try and go to their native habitat and, you know, um, poach and take snakes from there if the demand sustains. And that's why we picked the story. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think that's a really great point, because like imagine how we already go crazy over leather, like, oh, leather this, leather that. Now there'll be a new kind
Especially
of
like
leather.
exotic leather, like
Oh yeah,
exotic
exotic.
leather.
Yeah, like imagine Gucci and Prada coming up with these Burmese python bags, and then they will have their new, limited edition collection or something like that, and then people will be going crazy for them, and then they'll be like first copy prints or whatever, and then people would want more and more. Now there are two questions in this. Like, one, I am really interested in knowing, when do we actually think that, oh, these snakes have become a problem? Like where do these animals become an invasive problem, or when do these animals become an invasive problem? Because I do not think honestly that there is anything more invasive than a human. We are the ones who have gone everywhere, and we have killed everything, and now we're like, oh, we belong here but you do not belong here. And then the most important question how Oops has raised, that, oh, now that you do not belong here, come, let's make bags out of you. And then once we have made the last bag, then, should we start growing you in smaller points, or should we just start killing every other Burmese python that is out there in the wild?
Yeah, and I think that's the crux of the matter. Like, to go towards your question, what you asked, like who decides that and what decides that. I think, since these pythons are preying on endangered wildlife, from like native wildlife there, um, we have to assume they're a problem, and they need to be sort of controlled and culled, and also because they're like introduced and they have no natural predators. The survival of the fittest only can apply to species who have evolved alongside each other for a long, long time, because evolution takes time. Unfortunately, it cannot happen at a blink of an eye. So yeah, I think we have identified, like, I think the identification of them as a problem, in my view, is correct. They are a problem, but as I'm sharing on my screen now, turning these snakeskin into leather and making, all kinds of different things, bags, accessories, all kinds of different accessories from them is is also a problem. Like, these snakes are a problem, granted, but turning
But
them into fashion is also a problem.
But again, I think these snakes are a problem. It's something that you need to research more. Like how we spoke about a few episodes back, that possums in New Zealand, they're villainized. They're they're actually actively marketed as something that eats the native wildlife, but they're only opportunistic. There's not a lot of data. There's in fact a study where it shows that there are two forest areas, one with possums, one without possums, and there was hardly any difference after even checking after 10 years. So something with the snakes as well, you need to see the actual impact that the snake is causing. Is it actually so much that you need to start culling them this way? Because you need to at least read up on the impacts. And these kind of animals, even, I mean, I would assume Florida would have some kind of predator for it, because Florida has all these snappy alligators, and it has these snappy other animals. So I'm assuming that it has like these birds and these land animals that do feast on snakes. There would be something putting them in check. And if they're not being put in check, there could be different ways, like, how we spoke about the gene CRISPR editing or something like that, where it's a slow process, but it is a more sustainable process of reducing a population of something that's causing harm. But there are two things we need to really actually like quantify the impact that they're having. Is their impact worse than the impact that we are having on the environment, the same environment, the Florida environment? If it's not, then coexist with them until and unless they're actually in your backyard and they're trying to kill you, then you can use it as a defense. But to actually like kind of just be like, oh, you exist, let me kill you, or and let me make belts and bags and other things out of your skin.
Yeah, no, I think again, this also, I think I would slightly disagree there. Like, in terms of, if they're killing native species, even if there is a shred of evidence that they're killing even one native, like one snake killing one native species, if there's even that much evidence, I think we can't sit there and say, let this happen, or let's do this wide long term study and then take action, like we said in the rhino story as well. We can't sit there and do nothing. But I think, as you were saying as well, like, turning them into bags and accessories is just compounding the problem, and rather than trying to solve the root
But
cause.
the thing with the previous story, oops, is that you can literally see the poaching and its impact. But with the snakes, we do not know. So there could be a lot of how the snakes cannot speak for themselves. There could be a lot of just let us kind of direct the public outrage here. So that could also be a way, like, there is no way that the snakes are going to defend themselves. So until and unless there is, it's proven that they have that kind of impact, we it's not about sitting back. It's about taking action that is actually needed.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, again, killing them or culling them is like the easiest way to control the population. It says that there are a couple of animals, like, Burmese python or lionfish, that are damaging some reef populations or native fish. But again, you're quite right there. But my view is, like, even if one snake is harming, like, one snake is filmed harming one native animal, that we should do something about it. But again, in the short term, this sort of culling is the easiest and the quickest way. But obviously, I do agree to your point that there should be more sustainable and more, I don't know, um
See, i think
more
i think oops, we do not give enough credit to animals and their adaptation as well. Now there are certainly some animals that cannot adapt, and I understand that. Now something like you know how in New Zealand we spoke about this, that rabbits were introduced, and then they introduced toads and ferrets to kill those rabbits. But then the toads and ferrets were like, "Oh, the native wildlife is so slow. Let us go for
Hmm.
them." But even despite all of that, there is still thriving native population. There are measures being done, but there can be bigger measures of things that you really want to protect. Why don't you make bigger protection areas of wildlife that cannot really, what do you say, survive on its own without human help? You
I
need to
think
give that.
I
But
think a lot of it also comes down to the money aspect as well. We also cannot overlook that fact that everything comes down to money. This might have been the chosen method of extermination because there's not enough funding to fund such a project, where those kinds of studies, while that would be a more conservative and like more sustainable and humane way, from some perspectives, there might not be enough money to
because I think
achieve
it's
that.
a lot of times we cull just because they're overpopulated. We do not even cull because they have an impact. And why I'm saying this is that a lot of times animals learn to coexist, and then animals, because
Mm,
their change doesn't happen like this. You know, you're not introducing 35,000 pythons in one area in one go. So it's not like the animals also just got startled by a big population being thrown in, and then nothing could change. Now these Burmese pythons, maybe one would have come with someone or somehow introduced to this area, and then they slowly reproduced and they slowly kind of grew their population. So there
mm,
would be a way that they fit into the niche, into the ecosystem. So it wasn't it wasn't how humans, like all of a sudden there's one factory here, and then you're like just raising off, let's say, a few hectares or a few acres of forest.
mm.
That would cause more impact than these snakes that are slowly multiplying. So the snakes would have multiplied over time and they would have an impact, but is it actually as bad as the impact that we are causing? And is it actually that big an impact as we imagine? Because we do not give enough credit to the versatility and adaptability of animals.
Yeah, no, I was just reading up on this. I found actually another article in National Geographic as well, where it says, Florida has a python problem. Are bounty hunters the solution? And I think that is also a question that we should ask of ourselves. That yeah, as you were saying, like, is culling them um through these is reducing their numbers through these culling events is really the solution, or is there a more sustainable way? And it,
No,
it goes on.
it's not about sustainable. My main issue is with the fact that these animals did not multiply, in a fortnight or overnight. So why are we going for these animals without actually knowing the impact? Because they would.
So I think there has been some research there, where, you know again, this is from the other article that was linked to that the article, the main focus article. So over the last few decades, these gigantic reptiles have wrought havoc on states' ecosystems. The constrictors have decimated native wildlife, including
Oh,
opossums, rabbit, rats, and foxes, with some suffering a decline up to 99%, according to roadside surveys. They've swallowed pets from legions of neighborhood cats. Again, pets not that important. Scientists keep a running list of the threatened or endangered animal that have been found in python stomachs. State listed species like little blue heron, roseate spoonbill, and big cypress fox squirrel, federally threatened species like woodstock, and federally endangered species like key Largo woodrat and key Largo cottonmouth. They compete with other predators, including bobcats, Florida's panthers, and native snakes for prey. So I think the problem part, like, I don't have a doubt about the problem part, and good to have your voice there as well, where you have a doubt. But I think, and it mentions, like, as adults they have few known predators, basically American alligators and crocodiles, bobcats, other snakes are, and potentially Florida panthers. They have a few predators there, but if they are eating these endangered species, then clearly it's not enough. Again, because
Again, they say they have few known predators, and they have at least named five predators there. Okay, so that is not a small number, and we both know that American alligators and crocodiles are a huge, different issue that people have in Florida. That there are so many crocodiles and
oh
alligators.
yes.
So, if you're telling me that there are enough alligators and crocodiles, and there are not enough predators for these snakes, I don't know, I still find it hard to believe. They might be having some kind of impact, sure. I'm not saying that they are not having their kind of impact, but is culling them the best solution, or do you think that there could be better solutions? I'm not even talking about reducing their population, but just actually knowing if their impact is actually that bad, as opposed to the impact we have, like the kind of construction and deforestation and different kind of impact that we have. Is that a better thing than actually just like blaming these animals and being like, oh yeah, 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 we should cull them, we should kill them?
Yeah, like, I don't know. I sort of think that if there is a problem that that is being caused by the species which is introduced, if there's an ecological threat that these species are introducing, then there has to be a way to reduce their population. But again, there's a research article that's linked there as well, where again where it mentioned they keep a running list of threatened and endangered animals that have been found in python stomachs. So I think, as I said, like, even if one species is being culled by like eaten by one python, that is cause for concern. That is cause for concern. Even if they're being controlled, even if they have predators, even if they have, enough, like, because that species doesn't belong there. That's my thing. Like, evolutionarily, that species doesn't belong there. Um,
Evolutionary, we probably don't belong in a lot of places either.
um, like, we migrated before the technological age. We migrated to all parts of the globe before the
Yes, but
technological
but
age.
think
So
about it this way. Um, like if we did not have the brains to build or make clothes, then do you think we actually could survive at the poles? We couldn't. Like we couldn't survive in colder places just because our bodies are not made for that. The last uncontacted tribes are still in island nations and not in the Antarctic or the Arctic. So we were not meant to go to all these places up and down. We were meant to probably be in a band of areas, because that's how probably you would survive naked. But we went everywhere, but we are not the invasive species. We are not. Everything else is an invasive
yeah,
species.
it's a debate there. Like, yeah, I think I don't know. We migrated to all these places before the Iron Age, before the Bronze Age, before we started settling down, when we were nomadic tribes. And that's why we were so successful. We didn't directly kill off other. There's no evidence that we directly killed off other human species, but we definitely played a part, and we were the most successful human species, um, across, I think, a lot of species that existed. There has been evidence around 10 to 12 species that have been documented that coexisted with us, but all of them are gone, and we are the only ones remaining. So there must be something special about that we must celebrate as well. But also, you quite right that there's literally no place in around the world that humans have not touched.
And the
And
fact
it's
that if something is an introduced species, then it cannot be introduced on its own. The snake is
mm,
not swimming from Burma to Florida. That's not what it's
Yeah.
doing. So
Yeah.
when you're saying it's an invasive species, we are the ones who probably brought it in the first place and made it an
Mm.
invasive species. So instead of us taking that blame, and trying to make sure that they survive because it is our fault that they exist in a environment that they shouldn't be. So there are two three things to this aspect, like I spoke. Like, first we need to see if they've actually adapted. Secondly, we need to see that that who actually introduced them. So what kind of actually uh, uh, what would you say, our responsibility or our um, research or our actions, like what should it be actually focusing on? Should it just be on the fact that, oh, now they've become an invasive species, or should we go back to the root cause of how they came in and what we can do for it that now it exists here?
No, but don't you think, like, even if we take the blame, like, I don't think, even if we take the blame, like, humans introduced this and humans are the cause of this species existing here, aren't we allowed to undo that mistake?
I mean, if you had to start undoing mistakes, we are one of the mistakes, right? Like, when it comes back to that, we need to take responsibility for ourselves too.
Like,
But we
I
don't
mean,
we don't like to take responsibility for ourselves. So we blame it on the next convenient thing. The next
hmm.
convenient thing is some kind of animal and the kind of
No,
impact we can see. So
but I
we
mean,
try to.
how would we go about undoing ourselves? Like, that's a very difficult conversation, Like,
So, which is why we shouldn't undo everything else either. That is what I'm saying. If you wouldn't
hmm,
undo yourself, why are you undoing everything else? Like, there would be better solutions to it than undoing. And I mean, the bags is a big problem. Like, bags or belts or whatever. I
hmm.
know. I mean, as a human, you have this tendency to want more exotic things, more luxury things, and this would be probably like a new thing in the luxury market, that, oh, you have these Burmese pythons and they look different as well, like as opposed to the other leather products. It's a different color, it's a different design. So it is really really possible that the demand goes crazy, and then I do not know what this woman or other fashion designers or other designers would do once they run out of the Burmese pythons. And then once we run out of the Burmese pythons, we might actually also know if they played an important role in the environment, because once they would have decimated, then we would know that gap that they were probably filling by being there.
Yeah, and I think that was the sort of area we were trying to focus on as well. That, you know if they are being culled, if they that's the government, like, ideally we would want that there be some kind of, intense research there. But if they're being culled, if that's the directive from the government, then they shouldn't be turned into into these kinds of designer bags or accessories. This is in my view, like, creating a market for something that's literally, like, unnecessary. Like, we don't need a market for for Burmese python printed, leather. And, like, I think at some point the Burmese pythons from Myanmar, like, originally where they're from, they were poached at some point as well, if I'm remembering correctly. But I don't know. I don't know, because snake print leather has been around for some time. But this is just fueling the demand in the guise. This is fueling the demand in the guise of being good for the environment. That's my problem with this whole situation. That this is, like, I think I read in this article somewhere that, yes, so they one popular brand, I think, is, yeah, so, as Inversa CEO Arav Chawda calls them, and high-end designers interested in using materials made of species like Burmese pythons or lionfish, similarly damaging environment to blah. um Inversa has a more industrial outlook. If we are going to tackle something as big as invasive species, we have to be thinking in terms of scale. We have to be removing tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands. So people, eventually millions, in order to make a difference. So people have already started thinking about, um, you know, we need more to fuel this demand. Um, and, there are quotes like, it's exciting to work with something that is beautiful and also helping restore the environment. So, as Meghna, you were saying, like, if a popular brand comes out with a accessory made of these Burmese pythons sourced from the Florida Everglades, they would market it as, oh, these are helping restore the environment. But people won't care. People would just start. People probably wouldn't even read that. Or maybe even if they read, they would just read that to feel good about themselves, that, oh, we are helping save the environment or whatever. But once the Florida supply depletes and goes away, then what? Like, the market is already created.
Exactly, and we never know with humans. We go crazy about the weirdest of things, like if you know about those Labubu dolls right now, those cute, ugly dolls which have become famous across the internet, and everybody wants one. So imagine that happening with, like, let's say some product that they've made with this leather, and then it goes crazy across the world. And then what are you going to do? Are you going to hunt down the last Burmese python? Because this is what we're really good at. Like, we'd create demand and then we'd regret it later. So we do this on purpose. So it's not a great solution to make them into bags, even if they're a problematic animal, which again I doubt, because I think that the kind of research that we do with animals is very biased. Like, we enter research with the fact that, okay, let's blame this animal and let's see what kind of problems this animal is causing, because it doesn't belong here. Like, the first thing we do with even humans that do not belong in the area that we designate, then we are like, oh, you're immigrants, get out of here. So it's the
Hmm.
same that we do with animals, that, oh, you don't belong here, get out of here.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think that outlook is something that we would urge the local authorities for as well. Like, get into that evidence based thing. There's already some evidence, but even more long term studies need to be conducted. And if in the meantime the authorities feel like this is a good way to go forward, again, we can't speak directly to policy making, or we don't have enough knowledge in that political how political parties are, or the local government is viewing this situation. Again, we don't live there. But if this is the band-aid in the meantime that's deemed by local people and the government, then it shouldn't the snake should be killed and just thrown away or buried, or turned into fertilizer or whatever. They should not be turned into something so exotic that it starts creating a market for which a market should not exist, and it's not sustainable. um cool. That's about that. And I think we've got to wrap up our show um by that story. We did have some other things we wanted to talk about, but I think, yeah, time is of the essence here as well. Um yeah, so definitely, if you enjoyed this show, we did get into a bit more of like a debate style at the towards the end of the show as well, which is our style anyway. But if you like that, if you dislike that, whatever you felt about the show and the issues that we talked about, not even the show, the issues that we talked about, just consider leaving a comment on all our platforms, whichever platform you're watching it on. If you're hearing a recording of this on one of the podcast platforms, consider leaving a rating. It really helps boost the algorithm for our podcast. And we've also started creating shorts from our shows. So do browse through our channel to get more sort of bite-sized content about that as well. We are on all the social media platforms, all the podcasting platforms. So Yeah, go follow us there. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this show. Um, we'll see you again next Sunday,
Yes. And before we
same time,
go,
same channel.
yes, and before we go, um, do let us know what you feel about the Burmese pythons being converted into bags. Is that something you're looking forward to buying, or is that something you do not want?
Cool. On that note, we will end there and we'll hope to see you next Sunday. Same time, same channel. Have a good one, guys.